Hi, and welcome to Postscript. I'm John Petersen from the Arlington Institute, and we welcome you here today to a delightful conversation with a couple of good friends. Postscript is our effort about once a month to highlight some extraordinary and unusual kind of speakers that we have come here to Berkeley Springs, West Virginia, in the eastern panhandle over here near Washington, D.C. We have a speaker series that we call Berkeley Springs Transition Talks, where we bring folks from all over the country and in the world, for that matter, who have something significant to say about where the world is going and where things are happening and in this extraordinary kind of transition that we're making to a new world. There's amazing kind of change that's going on from many different kind of dimensions. And the the question to most people is, who follow this or are involved in it, is how in the world do you deal with this and what's going on? And so we're fortunate to have with us today a couple of wonderful friends from down in Virginia and Tennessee who've come to be with us. Raymon Grace, our friend, who's been here a number of times before. Welcome back, Raymon.
Thank you, John. Really appreciate the invitation.
And Jeff Jones, who's come up from Tennessee.
Thank you, John.
Both of these folks live very down near the southern end of Tennessee, of Virginia, and close end Tennessee.
Right at the border.
Mm-hmm. And they're a fearsome duo as well, because these guys are really unique in the way that they some of the capabilities that they have and some of the things that they do. That really are emblematic of what this new world is emerging, and some of the capabilities that we're starting to find more broadly, or at least to develop more broadly in humans. And both Raymon and Jeff are dowsers, among other things. And Raymon is one of the best known dowsers in the world, and we're just pleased to have him here. He's been here with us before. And Jeff has got an interesting story to tell us as well. And so, Raymon, tell us a little bit about dowsing, and it's just for those of our listeners and viewers who are not familiar with it.
Okay, the general description and the definition of dowsing is simply someone with a forked stick looking for a place to drill a well. This has been in the culture in the Appalachian Mountains where I live, probably as long as there have been people there. I don't really know how many centuries it goes back, but quite a few. And my thinking was, if there is something within the human mind that can find a vein of water several hundred feet under the ground, drill a well, hit water, repeatedly over years, then there's got to be something to it.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, if the human mind can do this, what else can it do? Now, I have been involved in mine development for about 40-some years.
Digging mines. Mines?
Mine, M-I-N-D.
Oh, mine.
No,
mine.
yeah, mind, brain.
Okay.
In mind development. So I've always been interested in what the mind can do. And this goes back to when I was in about the 10th grade in school, in algebra class. One day, the teacher made a comment that it was reported that Einstein may have used only 10 to 15% of his brain. And I thought, well, what could he have done if he'd used 25%? So I set out on a quest that day, which I haven't finished yet and probably never will, but to find out what all could be done with the human mind. And that quest has led me down a lot of roads. One was being a lecturer for what is known as Silva Mind Control, which I lectured for them for a few years. And then that led me to dowsing. I've studied that. I've studied a bit of shamanism. But today we'll just focus on dowsing. One of my friends defined dowsing as mother's intuition with a readout device. Here is the readout device, a bullet on a chain, okay, for a pendulum. That's one of the things that we use. There's nothing magical about it. The magic is up here in the brain. And by learning to, let's say, calm the mind, technically what we're doing is reaching an alpha brain frequency. We have the ability to access information that is not readily available at a beta brain frequency. So I'm just kind of hitting the high spots here. And dowsing is simply the use of a device, be it a forked stick, a flexible wand, a bullet on a chain, or whatever. It's simply a tool to help focus the mind.
Well, one of the first examples that I had of kind of practical examples of dowsing was when we needed to do a well down at on our farm. And so this old guy, he was in his 80s, he came out from Washington, and he ran around the farm for about 15 or 20 minutes with his stick, and he said, drill there. And we had the drilling company come down there, and what this man said was, well, if you drill there, there's one vein of water goes this way and one goes here, and if you'll hit them both, it'll give you about 150 gallons a minute. Wow. And boom, that's exactly what we hit, and we had 150 gallons a minute, and it became very clear, even though I was familiar with it, that dowsing was quite real. And of course, many people, like you say, it goes back, if I think, to Egyptian days when they were doing dowsing. So there's something really kind of interesting here about how you kind of connect kind of the mind or the intuition, if you will.
Yes, I would say it enhances your intuition.
Reads back, kind of gives you does it kind of, is there any particular kind of, how would you teach somebody to do dowsing?
Well, teaching dowsing is one of the things I do. I offer classes in this. I've taught all over North America in the last 20 years. So I start them out very simple to learn how to hold a pendulum, basically with thumb and forefinger like that.
And then it can be any number. You don't have to have a bullet, right?
No. People say, why do you use bullets? Well, I like bullets. Okay. So you learn to get it to move. Now, this comes very natural to some people, and it's more difficult for others. It's just like art, playing a musical instrument, whatever. Sometimes it comes natural, sometimes it doesn't. For me, frankly, it didn't. It took, oh gosh, it seemed to take me 3 years to get a pendulum to move 1/4 of an inch. What was interesting was I was working with one of the best known dowsers in America, Walt Woods. And I was amazed at his pendulum would work. It would go like this right here, where mine was going more like this. So one day I got an idea, and I said, hey, I want you to work like Walt's. And mine immediately started working like that. Yeah. So if you know how to ask the right questions, now you cannot get the right answer unless you ask the right question. So that's the first thing. Right. Ask the right question, be reasonably proficient with dowsing. You can find out practically anything you need to know about anybody that ever lived.
Now this is really profoundly interesting, because through this mechanism, I mean, and there are other things that other people do, but through this mechanism of dowsing, what you're suggesting is that you can access the essential nature of everything in this reality, and you, through your mind or your consciousness, you can change and shift that potentially.
The way I say it, John, is that everything, including our beliefs, our thoughts, our memories, and opinions, are forms of energy. Einstein said it like this: everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. So we're both saying the same thing. So what we can do, the intelligent human mind can shift energy. Yeah. That's it in a nutshell.
Well, lots of folks and literature and history and so on will suggest that that's what we do anyway, all of the time, and we're not aware of the fact that we're doing it. And the intriguing thing to me, and certainly in the context of what we're interested in, is this transition and what new humans are becoming, is what you guys do is be able to make that explicit, that process explicit, so that you can start to manifest things, with plan in a planning or an explicit kind of way.
Well, what you said there, we do it anyway, whether we realize it or not, but if we realize it, it kind of stacks the deck in our favor.
Yeah.
I think it was Henry Ford said, whether you believe you can or believe you can't, you're right.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
So actually this is based upon, I believe, another principle called energy follows thought. Wherever you put your thoughts, you put your energy.
Right.
And wherever you put your energy, that is the reality that you manifest. So a lot of folks, when I'm doing readings for people, say, should I worry about this? And I say, if it's a health problem, I said, no, you should never worry about anything. You should do something about it.
Yeah.
Why? Because all worry is a way to feed
That's
what
right.
you don't want.
You make it continue to happen. So now give me a couple of examples of what you can do with dowsing.
Okay, one is travel routes. And I use this example in the class I teach. I was going out to, I believe it was Des Moines, Iowa, and I was going out I-64, and I get to Louisville, Kentucky. I got to make a decision. Do I go up through Indianapolis, hit Interstate 80, or do I go out through St. Louis, all the way out to Kansas City and head north? It's 125 miles further that way. So I'm driving along there, and I think, okay, I got to make a decision. Now, right here is the question that I always ask. It's kind of a catch-all phrase, I guess, and that is, what is the result of? I don't usually ask questions can be answered yes or no because they're insufficient. Like for example, if you ask, is a soft drink good for you, you probably get no. If you ask, is diesel fuel good for you, you're going to get no, but it won't tell you the difference. If you ask, what is the result of, you will get a numerical value that helps you to define the answer a whole lot better. So I was just asking, what's the result of me going up through Indianapolis, hitting Interstate 80, 20%? Well, that tells me that it's not the best choice. What's the result of going right out, I believe it was I-70, to Kansas City? 100%. So I went that way. I didn't know if I'd made the right choice or not until I got there. All the folks who came in on the route I had intended to take, or had considered taking, from out of Illinois, they drove through severe thunderstorms into our way. I drove through sunshine. Now, we've done this numbers of times. We do it for other people. Just choose the best route to take.
Yeah.
Now, one I'd like to give while Jeff is here.
Yeah.
I was about, let's see, I was in Florida, what has it been, Jeff? 4 years ago, I believe.
Yeah,
I woke up one morning, and this is how, what I'm saying about it enhances intuition. Something told me, call Jeff. Mm-hmm. So I called him, I said, Jeff, where are you? And I remember this was sometime in March. He said, well, I'm going on I-77, going into West Virginia. I said, get off the road as quick as you can. He said, there's an exit right in front of me. I said, take it. Jeff, you take it over now.
Yeah, well, I took off that exit, and the next exit up from that was a tunnel, and the tunnel collapsed.
Oh my.
And I would have been in the tunnel with the tunnel collapse had I
Yeah.
not got off the exit. So
Wow.
Raymon sensed that danger and let me know, and was able to pull off and avoid. Now, it was really good, except I had to drive around, an hour and a half around
sure,
the tunnel.
sure.
But
It's better
but I
than-
wasn't stuck in the tunnel.
Better than being in the.
So it worked out very
in
well.
the rubble.
Worked
Yeah,
out very
right.
well. yes.
So see, John, the human mind has the ability to do this if we do what I call program our brain. And I had programmed my brain to be aware of danger to my friends.
Yeah.
So it's not so much a matter of smarts, it's a matter of intuition.
Okay. So with a pendulum or through a dowsing mechanism, you can get binary answers, yes or no. You can get numerical kind of degrees, how much or so on. If you ask the right question, which you said was the most important thing initially, then you can work your way down to sequentially. It's a kind of a decision tree kind of process.
Yeah, but it doesn't take long.
No, I know it doesn't take long, but what I'm trying to say is that the way you get to most of anything is by making sure that you ask the right question or you approach it in this kind of a systematic way. And being able to do that, of course, you can find water and you can find where electrical cables are, or you can make electrical energy stay in the walls rather than inside of the room, right? If you got
Different people have different abilities. Finding missing objects is not one of my
but some do.
greater abilities. For some people, they do that real well. What I do mostly is what I call clean up energy.
Right.
Make homes happier, have people get along better, just generally improve life. I'm not too awfully interested in finding where somebody lost their earrings or something like that.
And so probably it's a function of what you're interested in.
You're right.
And so people with different interests, because I've heard dowsers or intuitives talk about how they found lost things and so on. And so this is interesting. But the original kind of concept and the statement you made here was that everything is energy, and so you can change the energy.
That's right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So Jeff, what did you have for breakfast this morning?
I had a glass of water this morning for breakfast.
What did you have for breakfast yesterday?
I had a glass of water for breakfast yesterday morning.
When was the last time you had ate anything other than water?
Oh, it's been quite a while. The last time I had a full meal was, or what most people would consider a full meal, over 20 years ago. My eating habits are a little strange. I took
One would say.
I took a class from Raymon back in the mid-90s, and he was discussing about how these same concepts are, that energy is everywhere, and you put your energy in the water. And one of the techniques that he was teaching was how to solve a problem using a glass of water. And to do that, you would drink part of the water, put your intention in the water, sleep on it, drink the other half of the water in the morning, and you would have the answer to your question that you were asking. And I thought, if we have the ability to do that, eating was something I never enjoyed anyway. Why not put all my vitamins and minerals and nutrients into the water? And since then, my health has greatly improved. Where I used to be considered one of the most allergic people on the planet, I can be around cats and dogs now, and all kinds of things, trees, everything used to break me out, and it was quite interesting. So now it's been a complete metamorphosis for me.
So yeah, but you don't just drink water. You treat the water and
Yes.
you try.
Yes.
Tell me about it.
Yes, well, what I do is, using that technique, there was another technique that Raymond had taught, is you put, utilizing, it's kind of a ceremony, if you will, but it's harnessing energy from the ethers, coming down into yourself and putting all of those things into that particular glass of water. And now, after years of doing this, I now have it that I can do it very quickly, so it's become very fast.
So you largely just drink water?
Largely. I will have salt sometimes will get me. I'll eat some French fries once in a while, things that other people say that you're never supposed to eat, a few peanuts on an airplane or something like that, because I do travel a lot. It's usually I'm looking for the salt. If I can get salt, that's the thing that my body seems to crave the most is salt. But as far as meats or anything, I don't even remember the last time I had solid food.
So now you're a pretty big guy.
Yes, and that was another story. Up until I got married, I was quite a bit lighter than this, and I got married about 8 years ago. And with my marriage, I found some other interesting things, and that was some belief systems that went back in my family for many generations. And I've gained 40 pounds since I got married, not eating.
On water.
On water. So I know this.
So how does that work?
I wish I could explain that. I would like to lose 20 back, but so far I haven't figured out how to pull those things back off. Now, if I quit drinking the water, nothing happens. I just get weak.
So what's going on here?
The only thing I can figure is his body has a belief system that we have not yet defined enough to address. I was thinking about that last night after a conversation, and I was wondering, okay, can I remove the belief systems in his body, mind, and spirit that believes he has to be the size he is? And I started working on it last night. I hadn't told you yet.
Well, that's good. Because we've been trying to figure this out, you know.
Yeah.
I would like to be back about 20 pounds lighter.
There's a little incongruity here. Yeah.
Because our belief system is the dominant factor that controls everything that happens to us.
Okay.
So
Talk to us a little bit about that. I mean, you obviously couldn't change the water that you drink if you didn't believe that it was going to work. I mean, everything that you do is based on it, right?
Yes, it is. And what I have found is that our bodies have belief systems. The various parts of our bodies have belief systems that our brain is unaware of.
So it'd probably be in the DNA or something?
Well, yes, I think that would be one way of saying it. Your brain may believe one thing and your heart may believe something differently, but the brain doesn't know what the heart believes.
Yeah, and scientists are now suggesting that the DNA is, everything is alive, everything is sentient at a certain level, that your DNA communicates. As a matter of fact, it communicates in language like we talk about it, as a structure and so on. And so, in fact, it would not be far-fetched to get to the place to say that there's beliefs, if you will, in certain areas, like your knee would believe that it isn't feeling good.
Even 200 years ago, if you told someone you were inheriting the color of your eyes and your hair and your skin from your ancestors, there are many people then that would have said, "Oh, that's just not true." So why not your belief systems and these other things?
That's intriguing.
It's the knowledge.
I mean, we can just look around and know that
Right.
You look like your father,
Right,
and that
exactly.
kind of stuff. Yeah.
So I think we inherit a lot of characteristics from our ancestors. Some of us maybe more than others. And my brother and I have the same genes, but we have different belief systems on a lot of things. I'm basically a mountain man, whereas he is a real estate agent, has served 30 years as chief photographer for a newspaper, and lives in a totally different world than I do.
Right.
But we have the same genes.
Yeah. Well, it's just intriguing things, and in our next segment, what I'd like to do is talk a little bit more about the larger kind of projects and the other things that you're involved in. But I'd like to kind of, in the 5 minutes that we've got left here, is to kind of give us a couple of examples of the kinds of things, because both of you are really quite accomplished at what you do, and both of you have an intuitive sense of things, or a developed intuition that you use with dowsing and otherwise. And give us an example or two here as we.
I think probably one of the best ones that I can think of was in early on when I first got into this, and Raymon was helping me. We were starting a small fledgling company way back then, and there was some equipment that we needed to purchase, and it needed to be machined and made. So it was specialty. It was not anything that could be picked up off the shelf anywhere.
Right.
The cost was going to be in excess of between $250,000 and $300,000,
right,
which we didn't really have.
Right.
So using dowsing, we asked, was that equipment available anywhere? And we got a yes. So we were able to pinpoint where that equipment was in North Carolina.
Wow.
Go over there.
That's the questions, that series of questions.
And purchase it for $25,000.
Wow. Wow.
So that's the best real world early example that I had.
Yeah.
And that one was one of those things. For me, I was very fortunate when, with Raymon as my teacher, I had very good positive reinforcement early, and I think that was very helpful, to me, because I saw results not in 2 years, but instantly.
Yeah, well, and there's a principle here, and part of that is that when you see things that really work, then you believe, and now you do a lot with groups, with corporations, with organizations, with families, and so on. Talk just briefly about that.
Okay. What I'm doing right now is a new venture, and Jeff is also helping me on this, plus and his wife. We've started a project of what I call cleaning up energy for families, and we've got 3 different language groups now. We have an English-speaking group, a Chinese-speaking group, which Jeff's wife takes care of for us, and an Italian-speaking group, and this was a new project. We only started this past year for the Christmas holidays. It did so well that we're still continuing it, and we'll probably still continue. We got people from 15 countries within less than a month. And I tell them I will do a monthly clearing on all their house, their family, the dogs, cats, everything in the house. but actually I do it about 3 times a week for them because I like to make sure that it works. And we're getting some very good feedback, and this feedback is on our foundation site, RaymondGraceFoundation.org.
RaymondGraceFoundation.org. And that's Raymond, R-A-Y-M-O-N.
That's
no
correct.
D. Yeah.
So anyone can go there and see the notes that folks have written in, how much it's improved their life and so on. Because, see, I was getting so many people wanting help that there just wasn't enough time to do it. So I found out, okay, we'll do it as a group.
But what you're doing is essentially changing and influencing the relationships between those within the group, whether it's a family or an organization or a company, and you can do that remotely from a distance.
Oh yes, I don't even know the people.
Right, which is really intriguing, and we should talk a little bit more when we come back about that. But you can find out more about from RaymondGrace.org.
No, RaymondGrace.us.
Oh, RaymondGrace.us. And if you go to his website, you can learn about this and you can learn about his work. And we'll be back here in another half hour in the second segment to talk about more of the larger kind of projects that both Jeff and Raymond are involved in. And I'm John Petersen from the Arlington Institute. This is Postscript, and we're glad that you're with us here in Berkeley Springs, West Virginia. Hi, and welcome to Postscript. I'm John Petersen from the Arlington Institute, and we're happy to have you with us here in a beautiful day on the weekend in Berkeley Springs, West Virginia. We're located in the eastern panhandle of West Virginia, about 100 miles from Washington, D.C. And once a month, we try to bring a speaker out to a speaker series that we call Berkeley Springs Transition Talks. And to speak about the transition that we're going through in this world from one era to the next one. I don't have to tell you that there's a lot of change going on in this world right now. Extraordinary, unpredicted, kind of unusual change. And what we believe is that it's working our way into a new era, into a dramatic new era where a new human and a new world is going to emerge out of all of this. And so what we try to do is bring provocative and interesting folks from around the world to come and talk about different aspects of that in the emergent world. And today, what we have is a couple of wonderful guys who talk about the kind of an aspect of what the new human might become. What I would argue is that these characteristics of the new human are all over the place right now. You can find them in different pockets with different folks, and what's going to happen is increasingly over time is more and more people will begin to have these capabilities. And today we've got Raymond Grace and Jeff Jones, who are two extraordinary kind of dowsers who have an ability to kind of connect between their consciousness and their intuition and their intention and the larger physical world and be able to change things. And so, Raymond, it's nice to have you back.
Thank you, John.
And Jeff.
Thank you, John.
Thanks for being with us today here in Berkeley Springs. And so in the first segment, we talked about a little bit of the kind of the mechanics and the basic things about dowsing, and maybe we can and most people kind of think of it maybe at best about being able to find water if you're going to do a well or something, but it's really much, much broader than that because, as you said in our first segment, that everything is energy, and if you can access that energy, those waveforms, the structure of that energy and influence it, and the way you do that with your consciousness, and you can then enhance it or maybe make it easier a little bit through the dowsing process, then almost anything is changeable. And you're particularly interested in things like water and in human trafficking and things like that. So maybe we can talk a little bit about that.
Sure. It always bothered me to live in a world where innocent people got tortured. As a matter of fact, back when I was about 15 years old, I had this wild thought that I kept to myself. I didn't tell anybody until very recently. But the idea was I would like to go back in time and prevent people from being tortured and mistreated. Right. I've got a story for I guess right now would be the time to tell it. I was in New York last October, and there was a lady came up to me as I was leaving and said, "Would you be willing to talk to me by phone?" I said, "Well, sure. Just send an email, give me your phone number, and I'll call you." John, it was the worst email I've ever received in my life. It was how a young girl had been literally tortured by people. I'll kind of censor this a bit. But when I got that email, I read it, I immediately picked up the phone and called her. She had been set naked on a hot stove when she was 6 years old and had 15 scars on her butt.
Oh, my.
Now, that is in addition to suffering pain daily, continually, night and day, for 37 years, and having nightmares every night for 37 years. Let's just suffice it to say I went back in time and eliminated the situation. She actually joined us on
Now you do that through dowsing, and you can work.
No, sir, I actually did that with just my mind.
Oh, okay.
We did a radio interview where she joined in by phone, and this is in essence what she said, but if anyone out there wants to read the newsletter, it's on our project website out there somewhere. I don't really keep up with things like that too well. But what happened at the end of about 30 days, and we waited that long to see if we'd actually done anything, even though she was expressing immediate relief on it. She had overslept every night since then. She said, "I haven't had a good night's sleep in 37 years. She's overslept every night for the last month. All the pain was gone. And here's the clincher. All 15 scars on her butt disappeared."
Wow.
Now, that is one of the best rabbits we've ever pulled out of a hat.
Yeah. Well, again, what you're making the point here, and what I'd just like to emphasize for those who are not familiar with what we're talking about, for which it sounds fantastic and wild and crazy and weird, is that it's all energy. And if you can access the energy, whether it has to do with your future, your well-being, your relationships, your health, whatever it turns out to be, it's all energy. And if you can access it appropriately, and whether you can do that through yourself or you can help somebody that is the kind of the capability that you both have developed far better than most people have. And I would, if I read you right correctly from our conversations, you understand that to work because you believe that it will work.
I believe it will. It's not that I know things can be done. It's that I don't know they can't.
Now that's very interesting. Now how does that work, Jeff? I mean,
well, if you think about it, think where science has come. Even let's talk even from a scientific standpoint. When I was young, what we were taught was the smallest building block parts of the atom. Since there's been almost 50 years since I was taught that, things have changed in the science world. We now know that there are subatomic particles that we didn't know existed then. The same thing is with this. It's the same type of energies. Only science has not delved into and been able to express and prove this in exactly the same way. So it's utilizing the intent and not just the scientific method to make things work.
Right.
And not finding the process, but trusting the intent and where you can go with it.
Right. And of course, what they've discovered is that an atom is mostly space, and it's not space, it's energy, it's plasma. And so you can, and all of that is intelligent at some level and sentient, and so you can access and change and influence that.
And it responds to human thought.
So now
It
tell me.
responds
So
to
now
human
you're
thought.
telling me this morning, was it, about doing water into wine? Not quite, but almost.
We were at a function a few years ago that Raymon took me to as his chauffeur. I got a nice invitation because I drove him there. And it was a medical conference group.
Up in New York, I think.
In New York. And pretty high-level medical physicians that were on the cutting edges of medicine.
Right.
And they had invited Raymon to speak on utilizing the mind. And actually he got an invitation to teach a class at Brown University of incoming doctors, which he declined because he didn't want to put on a coat and tie. But to try to get them thinking in the right direction before they were completely turned into the scientific world. But we were at dinner, and I decided I wanted to have a little wine, but I really didn't want the effects of the alcohol. So I just told them that I would take the alcohol out of the wine.
Right.
And this got some strange looks, as you can well imagine. And it was a very nice bottle of wine. So we just kind of looked at each other, and I took the alcohol out of the whole bottle of wine. And the expressions on their face
destroyed their $50 bottle of wine.
Kind of priceless. It was
and obviously they drank it and they knew that the alcohol was
Yes,
gone,
they
and
knew it
so
was
in
gone.
fact you had changed the
molecular-
energetic kind of at the
at the molecular level.
Now you do this in terms of water more broadly.
Right. I set a goal over 30 years ago to clean up the water on this planet. I didn't have a clue how I was going to do it. I just set a goal. I never really worried too much about how. So I started out picking up trash out of the streams. I'd go to the beach. I'd get garbage bags. I'd pick up trash. I started cleaning up water everywhere I went. I'd get some strange looks sometimes, but that never bothered me. And then I learned how to energize one small little cup of water. And that was back when Jeff was in the class, and he said, "You're putting energy in water?" "Yeah, I think so." And that's when he decided he could put vitamins and minerals in it, and he did. So then we found that we could energize more water than that. And I'll be very brief with this, but I found I could energize water, stick my finger in the glass of water, shake it off in a 23,000-gallon swimming pool, and change the energy of the entire pool.
Right.
What
It's
happened?
almost homeopathic. I mean, there's an interesting kind of notion here.
Yeah, what happened there was it was a surprise. We didn't know if we could do it or not. So first we dowsed to expand to see how far the energy field of the pool had expanded, and it started out at something like 3 feet. Well, it went out to 200 feet. But then what happened? We found that people could get in the pool that had aches, pains, sores, whatever, and come out, and they were gone.
Well, don't say that. Then people won't come to Berkeley Springs.
Now, I don't know how long that lasted because I didn't keep
probably
up with
just
it.
went away right away.
But anyway, it's,
That's good. I like it.
I don't think it's still going on, but it did for a while.
No, but it is here, so
yeah.
please calm down.
But we didn't know that was going to happen. Had no clue. And then I want Jeff to finish up. I'll start the half of the story, and he can finish the other half. I got an idea one day about something. So I called Jeff. I said, "Jeff, go to the kitchen and get a glass of water." He didn't even ask me why. Tell him what happened.
I went to the kitchen, got a glass of water, and tasted it. And I said, "Wow." It did not have the chlorine taste. It did not have any of the chemical taste, because I live with city water, and it's treated.
Right.
And so then after I took a drink, then I asked him, "What did you do?" He said, "I put an energetic filter on the water."
Wow.
So he had, with using his mind, he had put a filter on the water pipe going into my house, and it had a dramatic effect on the taste of the water, and it's still there today.
And you can have done that in many places in larger kind of bodies of water.
Well, we found a more time-efficient way to do it than that. Someone sent me a little 4-ounce bottle of water from a place in Montana called it was in Great Falls, Montana, a spring out there. And this water, according to what I was told, was among the purest in the world. So when I started, in my terminology, talking to the water, communicating with the water. So I found that I could take the quality of that spring in Montana, and I could put it in a pipe going in someone's house. Now, let me hasten to say, we've not had 100% success with this. We've had good success, But for some reason, there's been a few people it simply wouldn't work for, maybe because they knew it wouldn't. But the highlight of this was last year, there were 30 people from Italy came to visit me. And I said, I really appreciate you folks coming halfway around the world. I'd like to do something for you. When you get home, there will be good tasting water run out of your kitchen faucet. Now that was a wild statement, I knew it, but I thought we could probably pull it off. Well, what they did that I wasn't counting on, they got on the cell phone, sent a text message back home and says, hey, take a drink of the water. It was already good.
Yeah. Now, you've also done things like lakes and larger.
We have to varying degrees. I don't want to give the impression that we have cleaned up all the water out there we've tried, because sometimes it just didn't work. But most of the time it did.
Yeah, but you're on the beginning of all of these things, they start to bubble up different ways, and then people get more accomplished and learn how to do it.
And one of the things, though, that was a real breakthrough was the first time Raymond energized water at a distance. On the radio. He was on a radio show, on the Coast to Coast radio show, and energized water for people all across America. And the results, that was really one of the first mass doing this at a distance, and it worked so well, it just opened the doors for many, many, many other things.
That was in March of 2004, and I was on Coast to Coast Radio with George Norrie.
Right.
And George said, if people out there would set a container of water by the radio, can you change the energy of it? And I thought, I don't know, let's try it and find out. And then he started taking calls, and even today, I still run into people when I'm traveling saying, I was listening to that show that night, and you changed the taste of
one of about 4 million people who were listening to the show.
And that resulted in him making a DVD
Yeah.
that would energize the water.
So you
and
did,
so
yeah,
it was that,
right.
you know, so
And
it will transfer over into those mediums. It's just amazing, isn't it, that the human intent
Yeah.
and brain waves can actually be transferred out that
Well,
way.
and
when
we
you
should
think
make
about
this point that you do have these DVDs, and you have a number of books,
Yes.
and you have other kind of training kind of things that are available at RaymondGraceFoundation.us.
No, it's RaymondGraceFoundation.org.
Okay.
And then, but my commercial site is RaymondGrace.us, and then we have another site, RaymondGraceProjects.com, that just has some free information on it.
But if you go to Raymond Grace, that's Raymon,
You can find all
Raymond
that stuff.
Grace, you'll find all of it.
Now, John, if you mentioned something a while ago that I guess I sidetracked us there, and that was about human trafficking.
Right, exactly.
All right, I made a film that hopefully would slow that down, and I realized that a lot of folks didn't really know at the time. I made the film about, I guess, 5 years ago, so I had to kind of redo it and explain it. The same factors that played into the trafficking to a degree caused various types of abuse, whether it was in jails, nursing homes, hospitals, schoolyards, or whatever. So we just made a film called Blueprint for Freedom. It's free. Go to RaymondGraceFoundation.org, click on what we do, and watch Blueprint for Freedom. And feel free to share it with anybody out there around the world, because it is a way that people can do a lot of good with never having to get physically involved.
But talk to us a little bit more. So if you take that and move that into kind of families and organizations and corporations and so on, talk a little bit about what you're doing in that regard and how that works, that being able to, what did you say, energize a group? What was the terminology you used?
You can energize a group of people. I'll have to be a bit discreet on this, but I've been working with someone who is going around on a campaign tour. And I have been working to make the groups receptive to this person.
Right.
And it is working beautifully.
So this is about relationships, so that you can influence and change relationships, wherein previously they were adversarial.
Yes.
And that they can now be compatible and things like that. You've made that happen in terms of kind of legal kind of situations, if I remember
We've done legal situations. We've done where people just don't get along. They're good people, but they're so incompatible. We just make the appropriate changes, as a number of them sometimes, and then people get along better. See, life can be better for most people than what it is. And that's what we're
really?
doing. Yeah, a lot better.
wow.
But see,
What a novel idea. Right?
yeah, most folks don't know this, so we got to tell them. And that's what the Blueprint for Freedom is for. It's to lower violence in schools. I have a very nice letter on official Royal Canadian Mounted Stationery from a Mountie thanking me for lowering the crime rate, the violent crime, in an Eskimo village up on the Arctic Circle. That goes back 10 years ago probably. Yeah. So yes, this works. Now, let me say this. You're always going to have better results if you have someone physically on location that is mentally helping you or requesting help.
Right.
People will try to send you all around the world to fix somebody else's problems where you didn't get invited. I decline all those invitations.
Right. But if somebody had a family situation where there was some abrasion or some other kind of problems, that all of that is receptive to this kind of therapy, if you would say, or this approach. You can do it with an organization or a company.
Well, I work for 3 real estate companies right now, and to sell a house, you have to have a buyer, you have to have a lender, a lawyer, an inspector, all of these people. If you got one person there that's not doing their job, then the house doesn't get sold. So I get hired to straighten out the mess and get everybody getting along, get the house sold.
Yeah.
It's not foolproof, but it sure stacks the deck in your favor.
Right. You know, we had Joe McMonigal here, who is one of the best-known remote viewers from out of that program. And Joe now works for mining companies to help them find where they ought to drill or where they ought to mine, and is really quite successful in being able to do that. And this sounds like a variation of that in being
Very
able
similar.
to.
It is. Where he is finding minerals or petroleum or whatever, I'm simply working with the energy of people.
Right.
But the principle is still the same.
Right. Well, this is really intriguing. You've got a service, a subscription service.
Exactly. Yes.
And so people, if they want to have their organization or their company or their home or something, they can find
The details are at RaymondGraceFoundation.org.
Yeah, that's great.
I mean, for less than the price of a cup of coffee a day, I clean your house up for
Yeah.
a month, the energy in it.
Right. And if you don't like it, if it doesn't work, you don't have
You
to
don't do it.
You don't have to do it next
It didn't work, so it won't do it.
Yeah.
So what's in the future for you?
That's a good question. Currently, I'm still involved in regular work in the regular world, and I'm really at a crossroads. So over the next few years, we'll see what direction
Well, you
if I
and
go.
Raymond, Jeff Jones, and you partner with Raymond Grace here.
I'm very fortunate that Raymond lets me tag along with him.
Oh, that's kind of nicely
No,
said.
no,
He speaks rather well.
It's
of
very
you.
nice of him.
Yeah, but and so there's some interesting kind of capabilities here in terms of I've watched them work together, and the two of you work together, and I can see this compatibility, and then, you check each other out, kind of, and it's very powerful. Like I said earlier, kind of a fearsome duo of folks here. So have you got any sense of the future? Like, where is the humanity going, and how does this all work in being able to effectively deal? See, I would argue that this is not kind of logical and linear. This is non-linear, the way this works. And what that means is, in a time of high rates of change and chaos, where you can't make sense in kind of linear ways, that what this intuition and this ability to manifest allows you a way to shape and where you're going in the face of chaos and change.
Well,
uncertainty.
I've been measuring energy for about 20 years. I won't get into all the details, but the energy that I have been measuring of human beings has risen considerably. And in my opinion, with the rising of the energy, our abilities have greatly increased. For example, when I first started going to dowsing conferences, when we started, Jeff, back about 93 sometime, in order to make physical changes, or let's say energetic changes in a place, the dowser had to go there, like to move a water vein underground. Had to go there and they'd drive a iron rod in the ground and hit it with a hammer. That was a procedure they used for moving the vein. Well, I found out I could move one 700 mile away simply by thought. Mm-hmm. So we have progressed a lot in this way. All the work I do is remote. I don't ever see any clients. I'll talk to them by phone. In foreign countries, I do it by email. But see, distance is not a factor.
Right. Because we're all connected. We're all one. Yeah. This is all a big energetic.
So the more that I can share information with people, which is why I have 3 websites out there to try to get the information out. Do shows like this, you'll reach 25,000 people with this show, or this interview. The more people that we can reach, and if we just have this one message, folks, life can be better than what it is, but you got to think. You got to make some better choices. People get themselves in trouble because of poor choices. If you learn how to dowse, you make better choices. Mm-hmm.
And as the energy increases, the distance gets even smaller.
And timing,
It gets even faster. So those negative thoughts that people will have, they can manifest much faster.
Well, it works both ways.
It does. So you don't want to, if you think negatively, you're going to draw negative energy towards you.
The law of attraction kind of stuff, you draw it to you. And so if you're happy and you're open.
And as the energy increases within the earth, my personal belief is this is going to get easier and easier for other people to start doing. And most people think it's really difficult, but it's adapting to the energy.
Well, the Earth's energy is changing now. I just got a report yesterday, or Wednesday, I guess it was, that they're measuring that the Earth's energy is changing in the relationship with humans. And so it's really an intriguing time, and we really appreciate what both of you guys are doing in terms of helping us individually and as groups and humanity, for that matter, as we move ahead. So thank you so much for being with us here at Postscript. It's nice of you to come and spend a little time with us as we feature some of the speakers that come here to Berkeley Springs, West Virginia, to our Berkeley Springs Transition Talks. You can find us at transitiontalks.org or at postscript.org. And we hope you'll come back the next time. I'm John Petersen from the Arlington Institute, and thanks so much.